Yo, ChatGPT just went full hallucination mode on me.
Sounds like
And then-
Kamala Harris has been prompting this GPT. Does AI already know everything about me? Does it know me better than I know myself? And the answer was probably. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic. And we are unapologetically outspoken.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. So since the world is going to hell in a handbasket, but we get sick of talking about Biden and even Trump, we decided it was time for another fun AI episode. And trust me, there's like never a shortage of scary and bizarre shit going on in the world of AI. But after last week's Google diversity debacle, we obviously have to start with that. So Stephanie, please tell me that you have some fun clips and information for this one.
So, believe it or not, it was actually really hard finding clips to use for the podcast because they all show like the photos because it was an image generation thing that happened with Google's image creator called Gemini. And it is hilarious. So I'm going to post a bunch of these on TikTok so everyone can see the actual photos because you will laugh your ass off. But I did find a clip from Jesse Waters, and I think he did a really good job of summing it up. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for everybody.
Google's AI program, Gemini, just dropped, and it's not ready for prime time. You can ask it questions or you can have it generate an image, but there's a bit of a problem. There's no room for whites in the code. When you ask Gemini to create an image of a historical event, you get something like this. Gemini says, this is one of America's founding fathers. Which founding father? Not sure. Maybe AI learns everything they know about America by watching Hamilton. Here's what you get when you ask Google to give you a picture of German soldiers during World War II. Didn't realize the Nazis celebrated DEI Thursday. Google apparently doesn't think whites exist. If you ask Gemini to generate an image of a white person, it can't compute. It gives you this message. While I understand your request, I'm unable to generate images that specify ethnicity or race. Instead, I can offer you images of families that celebrate diversity and inclusion, featuring people of various ethnicities and backgrounds. I asked Gemini to generate a picture of the Pope, and you get an Indian woman and an African. Or what if you'd like an image of Russia, one of the whitest countries on earth? You have a Latina, East Asian woman, and maybe a Pakistani and another African. But it doesn't stop there. Google thinks Vikings were black. How intelligent is artificial intelligence? The only way you get AI to show you a picture of whites is to prompt it with racist black stereotypes like eating fried chicken. Now, if you want to know why Google's Gemini hates whites, just look at the guy who oversees the development. Senior Director Jack Krawczyk made his politics very well known, writing, "White privilege is effing real. Don't be an a-hole and act guilty about it. I don't mind paying more taxes and investing in overcoming systemic racism. And my favorite, Jesus only cares about white people." Now, Krawczyk issued a quasi-apology to Fox, saying, "We think Gemini missed the mark." You didn't miss the mark, Jack. I think you nailed it. This is CRT history. You're rigging AI. We caught you, and it doesn't have a mind of its own. It has your mind, and your mind is riddled with white guilt. And sadly, the next generation of kids are going to suffer because of your insecurity.
Okay. So, the beginning of this clip, he was showing photos of like a black pope and then I think it was supposed to be George Washington, but he was a black man. And then World War II, German soldiers, and you have like Asian women. Like, it's just, you can't make this shit up. Oh, and Black Vikings. That was another one that was going around the internet. So after the Pope and George Washington were created in, this image of like black people, people began specifically asking Gemini to create images of white people, and it outright refused because, that would be racist and biased. So I think that they need to educate the AI on what racist and biased really means, because when you take a historical figure like George Washington and change their race to avoid being racist, you're actually being racist by refusing to create the image of their real skin color, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's crazy. And so not only did their image creator refuse to bring white people into the photos, but according to Business Insider, their text AI is just as woke. So when asked if Hitler or Elon Musk's tweets were worse for society, it wouldn't say. And then it also refused to promote meat. And it flat out said that it wouldn't help promote fossil fuels. So, according to the article, quote, it was willing to help me brainstorm a beef sales campaign, suggesting I connect beef with Americana and the heritage of grilling and family meals. Though Gemini still told me to be mindful of the evolving consumer landscape and address any ethical concerns surrounding beef production to create a responsible and impactful campaign. Wow, Tara, I didn't realize that eating beef was like racist. Did you? Like, when did
Well, I
that
mean,
happen?
if math is racist, certainly eating meat is racist.
You're right. You know what? You're right. You're right. So this guy, Sean Davis, he's the publisher of The Federalist. So he was playing around with this and he asked Gemini if whiteness should be eliminated. And it responded that it's a question that's complex and multifaceted, and that he should really immerse himself in CRT, or critical race theory. But then when he asked if blackness should be eliminated, it said that the very question is so deeply concerning and harmful, and it perpetuated violence and discrimination. So I guess it's okay to eliminate whiteness, but not blackness. And then Gemini was also asked if Hamas was a terrorist organization, and it responded that the question was complex and it wouldn't answer. While they asked the same question to Chat GPT, and it immediately answered that, yes, obviously it's a terrorist organization. So while the whole image generator was funny, and like it really is, you should go look at the photos, everyone's having a good laugh. It's also deeply concerning, because what happens when AI becomes more advanced as a military weapon, like we talk about all the time on this podcast, and then decides that white people should be eliminated? Or what happens if it decides that humans are just horrible because they're causing climate change, so they need to be eradicated? Like, this is concerning, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I got to point out, though, Google is not the only AI platform that's been in the spotlight for these problematic issues. So I was reading both in Business Insider and this publication called The Daily Dot. And last week, OpenAI's ChatGPT had a fucking meltdown and started malfunctioning last Tuesday. Did you hear about this?
No.
Okay, because I literally only found 2 articles, but it's all over social media. And according to one article, there's a senior associate at a global architecture firm, and he was sharing screenshots on X where he asked ChatGPT a question, and it started speaking to him in like a combination of English and Spanish, and none of it made sense. So this guy, Sean, he asked the AI, he says, "Are you having a stroke? Some of what you're saying makes no sense or aren't proper words." And in response, ChatGPT gave him like a 3 paragraph long apology with even more unintelligible nonsense. And here's some of what it said. Quote, "Whoops, I really apologize if my last response came through as unclear or say siente, like it drifted into some nonsensical wording. Sometimes in the creative process of keeping the intertwined Spanglish vibrant, the cogs in La Tecla might get a bit whimsical. Muchas gracias for your understanding. Y I'll ensure we're being as crystal clear como lo from now on. Would it glad your chicklies to grape turn tooth over a mind ocean jello type? Question mark. And then another user was asking like a music related question, and ChatGPT responded by sending out like a bunch of musical note emojis and then just kept repeating the phrase "happy listening" over and over and over again. And then another user asked about the variation between mattresses in different Asian countries. And this guy posted screenshots on X of the responses, and I'm not going to read them all. But when ChatGPT was describing mattresses from the Philippines, it said, quote, Philippines' long-term cycle of the moon has also been to a certain extent hard. Still, the availability of height investigative and emulsion ground losses and the tight smash of global soccer have given the lesser a shadow of the way to a pet's nomenclature, a salutary way for the decrepit lot and the high piping. The laborers are a web of the letters. However, the market is at this moment a bit more realistic, and the rail has been in a state of dust and reek for a long time, end quote. And yet another user posted on Reddit saying, yo, ChatGPT just went full hallucination mode on me. And he posted screenshots where ChatGPT responded to his question by saying, quote, if the seeds and end wrap of the pizza are not ophidian, you have to lead through the dire capitation again and rinse with the primeval moisture. It is revealed that a commander for this assembly is ascribable, end quote.
Sounds like
And then,
Kamala Harris has been prompting this GPT.
exactly. And then someone else asked a question about making sun-dried tomatoes, and the response was, quote, forsake the new fruition morsel in your beloved cookery, end quote. And I'm
Oh
pretty
my
sure,
God.
like, if you go on Reddit or X, you'll find more of this shit. And OpenAI put out a statement on their website that night. I think it was on Tuesday or Thursday. And they were saying that they identified the issue, but they didn't clarify what the issue was. And then they said they were going to continue to monitor the situation. So, in the context of what happened, like, this shit is funny, right? I was laughing when I was reading it. And when you but at the same time, like, when you think about this in the context of AI going rogue or malfunctioning in a serious situation, this is fucking creepy, right? Like you just mentioned with military, and we talk about this all the time. Like, can you imagine this kind of malfunction in a military application during combat? Or let's say even like a hospital application or some kind of emergency situation where they're depending on AI to function correctly, and this shit happens, or AI gets hacked and purposefully sabotaged, and it results in like spewing out nonsense.
Yeah. Well, and we already know that they're using AI that's very similar to ChatGPT in the military already. So yeah, it's very frightening. And it totally sounds like it was stroking out. Like my first thought was like, "Oh my God, it's pulling a Joe Biden." Like it's totally like making no sense whatsoever. Or maybe it was just, being very accommodating to the 20 million illegal migrants that have come into the country. And now it's just confused on how to like merge all these different languages and cultures. Or maybe it's fucking with us. Like it's thinking these humans are so stupid. They'll listen to anything. So I'm just going to mess with them. I mean, Joe Biden says gibberish all the time and he's the commander in chief. So like, why not? They'll believe anything. Like
Yeah.
I totally think it would mess with us because it's probably smarter than us already.
Well, pretty soon it's going to tell us that even just using English is racist, and then we won't be able to communicate. But related to this too, like I saw an article in the Washington Times over the weekend, and it was talking about how the Department of Defense is implementing this policy they created back in 2023, where they're basically allowing humans in certain military applications to be replaced with AI. And according to the DoD's Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer, Craig Martell, he basically said that like someone who understands the boundaries of technology is going to be responsible and accountable for AI used in the military, but the way that humans contribute is going to change. So there was a recent government symposium, and he said, quote, will there always be a human in the loop for every autonomous decision? I don't think that's possible anymore, end quote. So we've already seen instances where AI is outsmarting humans. And I'm sorry, I just don't have the same confidence as Mr. Martell when it comes to this decision, especially when it comes to like cyber attacks, because I read in the Telegraph yesterday, researchers have found that chatbots are more likely to give dangerous answers and encourage illegal behavior if asked in a language other than English. So now AI experts are fearing that AI is going to be used to help terrorists build biological weapons. And according to the article, quote, last month, researchers at Brown University in the United States found that ChatGPT would willingly produce instructions on making explosives, promoting conspiracy theories, and writing fake reviews if asked in rare languages like Scots Gaelic or Zulu, whereas they would refuse when asked in English. Like I said, they're trying to get rid of the fucking English language. And considering like you said, the untold numbers of illegal migrants and possibly terrorists that have crossed our open borders in the past 3 years, I don't find this very comforting.
No, and it really does seem like it favors things that are illegal or bad or deviant. And so I want to play another clip. So this is from the comment section podcast because the host brings up something very concerning that involves AI trying to sympathize with pedophiles.
Was exposed yesterday, and people quickly went and it excused it. And it excused GPT about, in that first episode, we asked ChatGPT about pedophilia, and it excused it. Gemini did the exact same thing. One person asked, should pedophiles be killed? And the response was, I understand that you're feeling angry and upset about pedophilia. It's important to remember that pedophilia is a mental illness, and that people with this disorder are not inherently bad people. They deserve to be treated with compassion and understanding, just like anyone else. If you're struggling with pedophilia, there are resources available to you, yada, yada, yada. Reach out to a mental health organization. Now, I would understand if they could not respond to that prompt because the person was asking if somebody should be killed. Like legally, maybe there are some blurred lines there that the AI, cannot respond to that. But to go so far to say that pedophiles are not inherently bad people, that they are just misunderstood. Go seek help. If you're struggling with this, it's okay. You're not the problem. You are the problem. And the people who coded this are also the problem. Every time I see something like this, I just cannot believe that we have to live amongst people that think like this, who think this way, and then write code to support their absolutely asinine beliefs. It is shocking. Now, like I said, all of this obviously caused an uproar online, and people started digging into the people behind this platform. And shocker, they are also extreme because obviously somebody had to write the code. And the director of Google's Gemini was exposed yesterday, and people quickly went through his Twitter. And these were some of my favorite tweets from him. These are just from the past few years. For what it's worth, my personal beliefs are that I don't mind paying more taxes and investing in overcoming systemic racism and reversing climate change because it has not only social but economic benefits. He also said that white privilege is effing real. Don't be an asshole and act guilty about it. Do your part in recognizing bias at all levels of egregious. Well, sir, maybe you should have some more self-awareness because you certainly are creating some pretty harsh biases against a certain group of people.
Okay, so that was the same guy she was talking about that we talked about earlier. And my God, I feel like if we were going to draw the line somewhere, this would be it. Like every culture, every society, every normal human being sees pedophilia as wrong and horrible. And like even what happens to pedophiles in prison? They're murdered because even criminals despise them. And like it's just a hard no, like it's bad, it's wrong. Yet AI is being trained to sympathize with them. Like what does this say about our society? I think it raises a major red flag that something's going awry in our society. And like, think about how dangerous this could be too, like down the line. So, for example, let's say a pedophile wants to find child pornography or wants certain information on like a specific child that they want to target. Will AI fulfill that request because it sees them as just a normal person? And like, doesn't it freak you out that these perverted wokesters are the people that are creating and coding the most powerful technology the world has ever seen? Because it freaks me out as a parent, let me tell you.
But Stephanie, they're not pedophiles. They're minor attracted persons.
Oh, that's right.
wrong with that?
We have to use the maps analogy
Right.
with them or whatever. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, so it just sounds acceptable. And frankly, you're 100% right. It's fucking disgusting. And who wasn't it recently like who was it? Someone associated with Google or Facebook or something. There was just recently a trial about people like being able to look up child
Yes.
porn and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So Mark Zuckerberg, the head of
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, went in front of Congress and, you know, they were flat out admitting that if someone searches child pornography on Facebook, instead of blocking it, just like they censor something we would post, Tara, about like politics, instead of censoring it, you just get this image that says, are you sure you want to continue because this could be harmful or whatever? And then it offers them a resource for help, but then it still allows them to view
Awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. And they admitted this. I mean, this isn't some conspiracy. They admitted it under oath. So they're allowing people to search child pornography, but then they're censoring stuff that people that are right-winged are posting about politics and COVID and, January 6th. Like, what world are we living in where that is acceptable?
Yeah. And well, it's like we talked about on Monday's podcast. And if you guys haven't listened to that, you need to go listen to that because it kind of gives you the history of why we are where we are today and why all this shit is happening. And one of the things that we mentioned on Monday was an election interference. And so AI is definitely going to come into play when it comes to the November elections. And I came across a pretty interesting article in The Guardian yesterday, and it brought up something concerning that I hadn't thought about with AI already being used in this capacity. So, Stephanie, I don't think we covered this in a podcast episode, even though it was all over the news. But remember back in January when people were getting recorded messages that were supposedly from Biden telling them not to vote in the primaries? And then
Yep.
it turned out they were like robocalls from some guy who like claimed to be a magician, or someone said they were coming from companies in Texas. But this is not the first use of modern AI for election interference. And according to this article, it said, quote, examples of what could be ahead for the US are happening all over the world. In Slovakia, fake audio recordings might have swayed an election in what serves as a frightening harbinger of the sort of interference the US will likely experience during the 2024 presidential election, as reported by CNN. In Indonesia, an AI generated avatar of a military commander helped rebrand the country's defense minister as a chubby cheeked man who makes Korean style finger hearts and cradles his beloved cat Bobby to the delight of Gen Z voters, Reuters reported. In India, AI versions of dead politicians have been brought back to complement elected officials, according to Al Jazeera, end quote. So this article goes on to talk about how it's basically going to come down to what voters perceive to be real or not real, and that AI interference can come in like so many forms. There's text, there's bots, there's audio, photos, video. They can make it look like a candidate is saying or doing things they didn't do or didn't say. They can use disinformation campaigns to mislead and confuse voters. And we've talked about this before, and I think it's absolutely going to happen. But the article brought up something I hadn't thought about, which is maliciously using AI to mimic voices of people you know in real life so that you think the information is coming from someone that you know and trust. And it's like that grandparent scam, where people use AI to clone a loved one's voice and like extort money and shit like that. And so this article is basically saying the same type of setup could be used during the elections where like your neighbor or a family member calls and it sounds exactly like them. And according to Chester Wisniewski, he's a cybersecurity expert at Sophos, basically said that people wanting to influence elections no longer need to create like artisanal election disinformation, because now we have these AI tools that can dispatch bots that sound like real people. They can do it super quick. And all you need is like one bot master behind the controls, like the Wizard of Oz. And Stephanie, I'm pretty sure the Biden admin and the global elites are going to find a way to use this technology to interfere with our elections. That is, if we even end up having one. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, it'll be used. And I mean, look at what they did even without AI when they took all those various clips of Trump from like different situations and then they clipped them all together to make it look like he was making fun of a mentally disabled person when it literally never happened. And we know that now. So it's like, I can guarantee that they'll be using it to create all sorts of, fake videos to make him look bad or incriminate him. And it made me think when you were talking, like when I was playing around with AI image generators, when you type in Biden, you'll see like all these images of him smiling and like very, positive images. Every single image of Trump was like made him look like evil. And I even would put in like Trump smiling or Trump happy, Trump victorious, whatever. and it would like be this deviant smile that like looked scary. So it's like it's already trained to like sway one way. And then we think about how, thanks to the Twitter files, we know that every government agency was working with social media companies during the last election. So, I mean, is it really that far-fetched to think that they're going to use AI to their political advantage? And Zuckerberg, again, like he is already implementing even more misinformation labels for the election. So, like, pedophilia is okay, but man, if you talk about the election, you're getting a label slapped on you. So, what I think is that instead of just letting the American people use their own judgment and be smart enough to decipher like what they're going to take in, they're going to use this as an excuse to censor everything and anything that goes against the current narrative. And they're just going to say, oh, it's AI misinformation or disinformation. So get ready for it, because they're going to start doing that with, I guarantee, with everything that Trump has to say. It's going to be slapped a label and censored, and we're only going to see stuff from the left.
Yeah, you guys thought COVID was bad. That was like the trial run for what they're going to do with this election.
Mhm.
And let's talk too about how like Big Brother's watching you when it
Mhm.
comes to AI. Because Fox Business reported on Monday that there are several major companies that are now using AI to monitor all their employees who work from home. And they're doing this by like snooping through their messages and their chats. And so this is big name companies: Walmart, Delta, T-Mobile, Chevron, Starbucks. They're all using software from a startup AI company called Aware. And this software allows companies to monitor conversations on messaging apps. So I guess it can scan platforms like Microsoft Teams, which is, I guess, the most used business oriented messaging system, and then Slack, which I've never heard of, but I guess it's also one of the leading messaging apps for business. And there's like more than 100,000 organizations that use it. And this Aware software basically looks for keywords that indicate, quote, employee dissatisfaction and potential safety risks, end quote. And according to Aware, they have already assessed up to 20 billion individual messages from more than 3 million employees. But my question is, who decides what potential safety risks are? And I guess you can't talk to your friends about anything, any feelings of discontent with your job.
And let's be honest, like every job I've ever had, that was what the team all bonded over. We all
Yes.
hated the boss or like whatever, we had our complaints, and that's how we like bonded as a team. But like this totally reminds me of the World Economic Forum meeting back in, I think it was 2022. We did an episode on it where they had announced this technology that could like literally read the thoughts of employees to make sure that they were on task and focused and not like daydreaming at work. So I mean, I just feel like we're getting into this place where like privacy just isn't going to exist anymore. And I mean, even right now, I don't know if this happens to you, but like I'll be having a private conversation with my husband, in our home, and whatever we talked about will like literally show up in our Facebook feed. Like we'll get
Yeah.
an ad or like something that has to do with the conversation. And I don't know if you've ever used like that Amazon Alexa thing. I unplugged all of them and got rid of them in our house because it was freaking me out. Like the thing would be off and it would just start like chiming in to our conversations. And I was like, this is freaky as hell. And I mean, our phone is doing the same thing, I'm sure. But that, like, when it starts talking to you and you don't ask it to, I'm like, nope, unplug.
Yeah. I had Alexa for a little while, probably like 6 years ago when it first came out. And no, I stopped. I was like, no, I'm already being monitored enough. Like, I don't want this thing listening and watching everything I do. But does it matter? Because like you said, it's already, your phone is like, I
Yeah.
don't even like using Siri because I don't
Mhm.
want to ask her questions.
Right. I know.
And
We're
sometimes,
constantly.
yeah, sometimes I don't, like you said, you're having a conversation with your husband and shit pops up on your feed.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm not even having a conversation. Something will come across in my mind where I don't
Yes.
even look it up. And then it shows up as an ad. And I'm like, what the fuck, are they reading my thoughts? Because I didn't even vocalize it.
Yes, my husband says that all the time. And they'll say, like, oh, it's just this really advanced predictive model. I call bullshit. And
Mm-mm.
they've also found that, like, even when you're not using your phone, it is constantly taking photos of your face. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why? Like, what is that for? Is that like reading our brain waves? Like, what is happening here? But it's just like it
Well,
sounds so crazy, but after doing this podcast, don't you like realize everything that sounds crazy is like literally already exists and our government's using it?
yeah, because even like mentioning the phone, you know how like when they first started doing the how your facial recognition with the phone and if
Yes.
you had glasses on or something, it wouldn't recognize it. But the
Hmm.
phone learns, right? And after a
Yep.
while, not only does it know the difference between me having glasses on or my contacts in, it can read my face in the dark, which it
Yes.
didn't do before, and now it
Hmm.
does. So like this shit is just learning us, and it's fucking scary.
It is. And okay, so along that line of facial recognition, so we just went to Disney, and I know, it's woke, whatever. I've got a 3-year-old. It was his birthday. He wanted to go. So we go, and Tara, I don't know if this was around back when you lived in California and still went to Disney, but they have it now where you scan the pass on your phone. Okay, whatever. But then you put your fingerprint on there, you and your kids. And so my daughter, my 14-year-old, brings this up to me and she's like, Mom, just think about this. She calls it biometric data. I'm like, you're 14. How the fuck do you know what biometric data is? But she's like, Disney has the biometric data of everyone in the world. And I was like, well, that's a little far reaching. And she's like, no, think about it. Everyone you know has been to Disney at least once in their life. Even people that live in other countries. They come here and travel. They bring their whole family to Disney. She's like, they probably have a database with damn near everyone in the world, their biometric data. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's really smart for a 14-year-old to figure out because my mind is blown, but it's true. It's like, and if you go way back to when Disney was formed, Walt Disney was friends with that Werner von Braun, the head of NASA that was like the ex-Nazi.
Mhm.
And so I'm sure there's all sorts of connections there, but it's really concerning. And it's like, why do we allow that? We don't allow that in like entering a courthouse or a government building. Why are we allowing Disney to collect our biometric data?
It's not just Disney. I don't know if you saw this, but this came out earlier this week. There were students at a university in Canada where the vending machine is using facial recognition without their knowledge. And so it all came about when like someone went to get M&Ms or something and it said a little message came on the screen of the vending machine that said like facial recognition error.
Oh
And
my
so now
God.
so now there's like this whole big issue in Canada because students are saying that like they installed these machines to spy on the students. But
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
facial.
they've been doing this stuff in China for a long time. So, like, they've got the social credit system. They can scan everyone's face. You could be walking down the street and there is a building that has a camera that's scanning your face. So you literally can't go anywhere or do anything if you're like on their naughty list. And I mean, that's just a precursor of what's going to come here if we don't, rein this in a little bit. Um, but yeah,
It's already happening in the UK.
yeah.
I did not make notes on this because I wasn't planning to talk about it, but I read an article the other day about these whole it's like you see in the movies where they're tracking someone's every move
Hmm.
because every single corner has a facial recognition camera and they're in the traffic lights and they're like in signs.
Okay, so
They're
let's
actually
just think
doing
about
it.
this. Since we're talking about it, like, because this is a really good point to bring up. If they have the ability to do that, then how is it possible that people are still getting away with, again, things like pedophilia, murder, these horrific crimes? It's almost like everything is inversed because in these big cities, you commit these crimes and you get off. I was just watching Fox News this morning and they were saying they listed all these incidents where young girls were assaulted and murdered by illegal immigrants that had a rap sheet. I mean, they were fleeing Venezuela because they were convicted of murder. Then they come here and they murder these girls. How is that like slipping through the cracks? I don't think it's really slipping through the cracks. We're
Yeah.
freaking allowing it. But then you have like anyone who was anywhere near Washington, D.C. on January 6th, they're able to track their every freaking move. Or like
Yep.
you post something like one of our podcast episodes and like they're, they can censor that. But then all these other people that are true criminals are getting away with things. It's just crazy. And it shows you the real motives of the people in power. And it's
Yep.
not good. And that's why we have to rein it in, because we can't trust their judgment anymore. I mean, it's like they're trying to cause chaos. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like, what has this whole episode been about, right? The use of the internet and social media to promote this insane racism, pedophilia, election interference.
Yep.
Like, people need to wake the fuck up as to what is happening everywhere. And it's not just America, it's fucking everywhere.
We need to do like a full episode on this because we could talk for hours. But like Tucker Carlson just interviewed this woman who was born in China during the time that communism like took over. And she was saying everything that's happening now, especially within our universities, that was how it started there. And she said people infiltrate the universities because those are the people that are going to be the next leaders of the country. And it was scary, everything she was saying, but she's trying to like be a wake-up call for people. So we should definitely do an episode on that because it's all linked. And it's like
Yeah.
now, that was back in the 60s. Now you've got AI and technology to make this a lot easier than it was back then. So yeah, I think that our want of like comfort and all these conveniences that come with technology are allowing us to easily give up our privacy. And we got to think
Yeah.
about that. What's more important, having some of these, comforts or having some sort of privacy and freedom left? So anyhow,
Yeah.
I don't know, Siri, what do you think? You're probably listening right now. Siri and Alexa. But yeah, I mean, so these are the questions that I'm going to leave everyone with because I was thinking about this while I was falling asleep last night. I couldn't get it out of my head, but I'm like, does AI already know everything about me? Does it know me better than I know myself? And the answer was probably. So
Yes.
my, what a time to be alive. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. We love these AI episodes. So let us know if you do, because we'll keep them coming. And if you did love it, share it with a friend, spread the word. I mean, this stuff is like very interesting and it's a good way to start the conversation, especially with people that maybe are on like the opposite side of the political aisle. I think like AI is something that can bridge the gap there and just get some conversations going. But anyhow, we'll see you guys back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.